Hello everybody, my name is Jonathan Liebert, CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Southern Colorado, and welcome to Small Business Week 2021. This is the largest small business week in the nation, and we are so excited about that, and that's in thanks because of all of you. The theme this year is epic. We have epic small businesses in our community, and we are going to have an epic week.
Hi, my name is Ekta Markulier, Executive Director of the Pikes Small Business Development Center, co-host of Small Business Week with the Better Business Bureau. Thank you for joining us again. We'd like to thank our sponsors.
Presenting sponsor, U.S. Bank, and our live stream sponsor, WireNut Home Services. We would also like to thank our corporate sponsors, El Paso County Economic Development, Kaiser Permanente, the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC, and the City of Colorado Springs.
Thank you so much for joining us for this epic week of events.
Welcome to Small Business Week 2021. I'm Jim Harris, U.S. Bank's Colorado Springs Market President and Commercial Team Leader for the Mountain States. Our friends at the Pikes Peak Small Business Development Center and Better Business Bureau of Southern Colorado co-host Pikes Peak Region's Small Business Week, which remains the largest Small Business Week celebration in the state of Colorado and the largest in the nation last year. U.S. Bank has been the presenting sponsor of Small Business Week for a decade, and we're proud to return again this year. The pandemic continues to be tough on many small businesses and entrepreneurs. So along with our fellow sponsors, we are bringing you the entire week of in-person and virtual events to you free of charge. We encourage you to join us for optimizing the value of your business and planning for the future. Learn from U.S. Bank experts on what drives the value of your business. Now we invite you to enjoy the free daily workshops and award celebration, all supporting and honoring the best of best small businesses in Southern Colorado.
Greetings, my name is Yemi Mobolade and I'm part of the economic development team at the City of Colorado Springs, dedicated to a thriving economy and excellent quality of life. We know our small business community is critical to the city's success, and that's why we're proud to sponsor Small Business Week. I want to share our most important tool, which is cosopenforbiz.com. It's a step-by-step guide to successfully starting a business in our city. Please check it out. Have an epic Small Business Week.
Welcome everyone as we celebrate Small Business Week in the Pikes Peak region. We're here at Hearth House representing an industry that was hard hit by the pandemic. I'm thrilled to be here as Hearth House reopens in our northern region of Monument, Colorado. As a small business owner myself, I know how important small business is to Colorado. Small businesses are the backbone of our local economy, and COVID-19 has significantly impacted them. As we commemorate Small Business Week with local events, workshops, and our famous awards celebration, we recognize all our entrepreneurs and small business owners in El Paso and Teller County. They have endured economic disruption, yet remain resilient and ready to provide outstanding goods and services. Small businesses are vital to our community, and we must continue to support them during these unprecedented times. El Paso County is proud to be a regional leader for our community's recovery, response, and reopening. We have allocated millions of CARES Act funding dollars and plan to give more direct relief to our small businesses in the near future. We are host to the Pikes Peak Small Business Development Center, who has worked with thousands of businesses to navigate disaster relief, resources, grants, loans, and provided the strategic support needed for all of us to remain resilient. The Small Business Development Center, along with the Better Business Bureau, continues to support our small business community's needs, especially when they need it the most. I stand with small businesses, and you can too, by choosing to eat and shop at your favorite local and independently owned businesses, not just during Small Business Week, but all year long. Together as a team, consumers and businesses, we will not only survive coronavirus, but we will come out stronger and better. We'll see you soon at your favorite small business.
Welcome to Small Business Week 2021. Thank you for being here with us today on our third day of a long week of events. Last year and this year have brought unprecedented change, as you know, and we are so excited to be able to come to you this year virtually, such as with this event today and with some other hybrid events that we've had throughout the week. We'd like to say thank you to some of our sponsors, our presenting sponsor, U.S. Bank, corporate sponsors, the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC, the City of Colorado Springs, Kaiser Permanente, and El Paso County Economic Development. Our live stream sponsor, WireNut Home Services, media sponsors, KRDO, the Colorado Springs Business Journal, Colorado Springs Indy, and HugSpeak. You know, last year, because we were virtual and this year we're virtual too, we actually were named the largest small business week in the United States of America. We're super excited to say that, and we're really excited to be able to bring this content to not only our local communities and in Colorado, but regionally, nationally, and internationally. So really excited about that. And before I hand it over to you, Jonathan, just a quick thank you to a few more partners that we've had on today's event: Epic Minority Business, the Hispanic Council, or the Hispanic Chamber here in the Colorado Springs area, the Southern Colorado Women's Chamber, and the Black Chamber of Commerce. So thank you to the three of those partners as well, really ensuring that we reach our minority communities with the information and access that they need. Over to you, Jonathan.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ekta. And today is the last day of workshops and panels. We're not done with the week quite yet, but so far everything has been going great. So we've had just tremendous conversations with great business leaders in our community, and you're going to hear from some more today on what is the final panel for our week. So again, just a reminder, we're going to finish up the week with our Small Business Awards celebration. That'll be tomorrow at 3 o'clock. That'll be virtual. So be sure to catch the finale of this great week. Each day we're going to be archiving those videos so you can view them again and again in the future. So make sure you check out the Pikes Peak Small Business Development Center webpage for those archived links. You can check them out in the future. And so again, for our final session this week, we are going to talk about how minority-owned businesses play a vital role in economic growth and community impact. With more than 1 million minority-owned businesses in the United States, this creates about 51 million jobs with an annual payroll of about $2.6 trillion. In Colorado alone, we have just over 72,000 minority-owned businesses, which created nearly $9 million in payroll for employees. Across the United States, we are seeing these businesses grow and provide tremendous value to the communities in which they operate and serve. In 2020, minority-owned businesses saw a disproportionate impact during the pandemic, with 78% concerned about closing versus 57% for non-minority small businesses. In addition, minority-owned businesses were more likely to try to secure a grant or loan, but failed in doing so. So we're going to talk about what these businesses experienced. And again, there's some things that have been around for much longer than just during the pandemic, but this year and last year, there's been a spotlight that people are now having the discussion and having the dialogue. So we're going to have more of that dialogue today. We have a great panel here with you today, and we have our very own Ekta, who is going to be moderating this panel. So I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. And so Ekta, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you to all of you who are watching and thinking about the importance of minority-owned business, and also to our panelists who are extremely busy and doing such the great work that you're going to hear about here in a minute, and for being here with us today. As Jonathan said, you know, there's been a lot of the access to capital, access to information. There's been a lot of things we've discussed in 2020, which really has been impactful to minority-owned business for many, many years. And 2020 just put it in a spotlight. And what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about those gaps and what we can do as a community, or what that vision looks like. But also, I'm going to give a chance to these amazing leaders here to talk about what they've done, because they recognize the gaps, they recognize the issues, and they actually came to the table to help create impact in our communities, both local, state, and at the federal level. So I'm really excited to talk about some really great things that is happening for our minority-owned business community. So we have a ton to cover. So if you're watching, don't worry, there's going to be a recording that's going to be posted if you miss something that you need. But really just pay attention and listen and have a good time with us talking, listening to us talk, and we're gonna get going, all right? So, all right, panelists, here we go. So, hard one to start with, right? Please introduce yourself and briefly describe your organization, but also for the audience, mention if you are, what level do you operate at? Federal level, state level, or local level? So I'm going to just go around the room as it shows on my computer, and we're going to mix it up, not necessarily go in the same order we're going to go in later. But Corey, if you can go first.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Corey Arcaris. I am the Southern Colorado Lending Officer for Colorado Enterprise Fund. I am also a senior consultant with the Small Business Development Center, focusing on Southeast Colorado Springs. Thank you so very much for having me on this panel, Ekta.
Thank you so much, Corey. Kayla?
Hi all, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Kayla Huddifer Nelson. I'm the Economic Development Project Manager for El Paso County's Economic Development Department. At our department, we take a holistic approach to economic development. So we primarily focus on 3 components in our department: community development, business incentives, and affordable housing. So I manage the cross-sector special initiatives and projects that exist within those 3 sectors. And I'm extremely excited to be here and talk with everyone here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kayla. Antonio?
Hi, everyone. My name is Antonio Soto. I am the Program Manager for the Minority Business Office. We will call also the MBO. We are part of the Business Support and Rural Prosperity Division of the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. This is the part of the Governor's Office that is tasked to grow resilient state economies that is work for everyone. And the Minority Business Office focus its effort in minorities, women, and veterans. We would like them to thrive, and we provide the technical support and other resources to do so.
Thank you so much, Antonio. Wendy?
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Wendy Lee, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Energize Colorado. And Energize Colorado was born in March of 2020, originally in response to COVID. Now we have a 4-year appetite to drive resilience and inclusivity across the state. We provide wraparound services in the TA category, technical assistance category, as well as access to capital through the implementation and hard work of 100 volunteers across the state. And we operate with the meme of Coloradans helping Coloradans.
Absolutely. Thank you, Wendy. Natasha?
Hello, thank you all for having me today. My name is Natasha Main. I'm the Executive Director of Exponential Impact. We're primarily a technology incubator and accelerator focusing on holistic support and really focusing on the economic development approach of driving high wage job growth.
Thank you so much, Natasha. And Francis, not to put you last for any reason at all, but that's where you landed on the screen. So Francis, you're up.
Buenas tardes to todos. I'm Frances Padilla. I'm the District Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration Colorado District Office. The SBA, in case you weren't aware of us, you probably got uncomfortably aware of us over the last year. We are the only federal agency whose primary mission is to assist small businesses to help you start, grow, expand, or recover. We're primary funders of several different SBA resource partners here in Colorado, including the SBDC Network, Mi Casa Women's Business Center, the Colorado Springs and Denver chapters of SCORE, the Regional Veteran Business Outreach Center, and that's headquartered in New Mexico, but serves Colorado. And then we also fund various entrepreneurial development programs throughout the state, such as the State Export Promotion Program, or STEP, at OEDIT, the SBDC's Tech Source program, and then various growth accelerators throughout Colorado, including the big virtual accelerator that was put on by Catalyst Campus in the Pikes Peak region last year. My office is located in Denver, but we serve the entire state of Colorado, and it's approximately 655,000 small businesses.
Very good. Thank you, Francis. So if you're watching, you can see we have good representation of different levels of support that everyone can access, which is also very important as well. So we're going to get into the next question, and this is for all of you as well. We'll go the other way around. So we'll start with you, Francis, and I'll go back through. 2020 is the year of the pandemic. Like no one knew that, right? It was the year of the pandemic. In retrospect, in your perspective, what was the biggest gap that needed to be filled for minority-owned businesses? Francis?
I mean, I think we're going to use this word a lot today, but if I had to summarize it in one word, it would be access, and further in access in a timely fashion. So to me, that meant access to information, access to connections and networks, access to technology in some cases, access to lenders, especially when they were the distribution source for programs like PPP. And then in general, just access to capital for actually getting approvals and money deposited in accounts. And especially when the source was first come, first serve.
Very good. Natasha?
Yes, I agree. And building off of access, I think the crisis really illuminated where the gaps were in a lot of communities, right? Where there wasn't trust to reach out or already access to capital. To build off of that, I would say that the biggest gap I really saw too was just being able to customize some programming to meet business owners where they are, rather than forcing them in kind of that, to scale, we have to have structure, right? But in terms of making sure that those businesses were being met, we needed to have something that was a little bit more customized.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about meeting them where they are as well later on in the question. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Wendy?
I would say, like, the one gap that stood up was, where does a small business go to see all of the available resources that they could tap into? Going back to customization, I do agree with that, but I think there was so much coming down the pipe. There were so many people trying to help and provide resources and provide capital that it was confusing and overwhelming for the average business on the average day to say, where do I start? And so that one resource map that a small business could double click into to figure out where they could maneuver to get some support would have been very helpful, I think.
Thank you so much. And even when there was something like that, Wendy, right, there was just so much content, right? In the Pikes Peak region, we shared in one of those, and it was just so much information, but who's that contact for each one? So if that was more available statewide or nationwide, if we had the leadership we had in Colorado everywhere else in the nation, right, things would have been easier. All right, Kayla, you're up next.
Yeah, I would say that from a local government perspective, obviously the COVID-19 pandemic created a massive economic disruption for our community, small businesses and nonprofits. However, after the development of the programs that we created in 2020 in response to COVID for COVID-19 relief in particular, we saw that not only access to capital was a huge need, but also access to education regarding marketing strategy, financing, budget strategy, all the above. And I would even further that, saying that I think making our minority business owners feel heard by government was also a huge gap that we noticed in 2020. We absolutely need to continue working collaboratively as a region to ensure that our minority businesses are being heard and that we're creating programming and policy that meets the needs effectively.
Thank you so much, Kayla. Antonio?
I agree with the panel, but the word that sticks to me is equity. Equity, even though there were resources out there, I believe small business owners were disproportionately impacted during this pandemic. And there were lack of voice, lack of understanding the needs in this niche that kind of created more issues down the road.
Yeah, very good. Corey?
I think the biggest gap was in community connectors, navigators. We had resources, we had community folks that wanted to help, but we didn't have the bridges to the minority business folks, the people that these folks trusted. And there were language barriers, there was trust factors, there was the people like me and other folks that could reach out to these folks and say, it's okay, these people really are here to help. And so we recognize that there's a huge gap in those people that serve as bridges to these communities. And we were spread really thin, and so we recognized real quickly that there needs to be more there's a huge gap in community connectors or community navigators, if you will.
And Corey, that was so important, right? Because not everyone gets their information through our social media posts. Not everyone gets their information by going, if there's broadband issue, or lack of, it's not like they're going to go online and go and get their information from our website. So just because information is out there, that community navigator piece or that community connection, extremely important because it's boots on the ground and you're walking into that place of business, right? And so definitely brought into light of how important that piece was and needs to be.
Right. Just simply translating something into Spanish and posting it online isn't necessarily going to do that.
Okay, very good. So this next question is for, as I say, like our state level our panelists, so Antonio, Wendy, and Francis. How can a minority-owned business use their voice to make change? We're always saying, like, use your voice, but how do I do that? Like, who's actually going to listen to me? There's that trust thing again, right? Like, who's going to listen to me when they're asking about what government programs should be put in place? Do they really care that I'm in Eastern El Paso County and they're going to make something for rural Colorado, rural El Paso, or rural Colorado in general, or, a local programs or, legislation? How much legislation was passed in Colorado this year, right? And that session just closed. So if you could answer that question, that would be great. We'll go Francis, Antonio, and then Wendy. Francis, go ahead.
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. And obviously, because I represent the federal government, I'm going to kind of take it from that 50,000 foot level perspective, because I think people don't realize that program policymakers, appropriators, and then even implementers, especially in government programs, we don't know what we don't know. We're not the ones in the trenches, so to speak. We're not the ones running the businesses on a daily basis. So unless you make noise when there's a process that's broken, or tell us that the message isn't being delivered clearly or widely enough, or even just that you're having issues with access to anything, technology, the application, understanding the terminology, or even better, if you had suggestions for improvement, and we won't know unless you share your ideas or your experience. And I think there's a worry that you will have some kind of black mark against you if you speak up. It doesn't always have to be adversarial or confrontational. You know, for federal programs at the policy level, you have so many options. You can inform an ombudsman or an advocacy office within each agency if there's something that's like systemic. At the appropriator level, you can express or inquire through like your congressional delegation or your state legislators or your local elected officials. And at the implementer level, you can always contact the providers. You can talk to your chamber, your economic development office, you know, you can talk to us in a state or federal office. You can even talk to a resource partner like AICTA, like the SBDC, that's been delegated to actually provide that assistance on behalf of a particular agency or program if you feel like talking to the feds might pierce some kind of veil. But from my perspective over the last year, most of the tweaks or the improvements, at least to our processes or even how the funds were allocated, were made as a result of customer feedback. It would never have happened if people didn't tell us this doesn't work for us, or we can't get into this process, or we've been left out. And the other way that you can use, I think, your voice to promote change, especially in underserved markets, is do us a favor, complete the surveys and answer the voluntary demographic questions when they're part of an application. Then we really do have that empirical data and not just assumptions or not just what everybody's reading on Reddit or on the black market on what demographic segments are actually able to access some of these resources. It's just so much easier to show the policymakers and the appropriators that there might be systemic issues when we have that empirical proof. So that data really does help us, AICTA, to be more strategic and to change our practices and our outreach also.
I really enjoyed how you mentioned the chambers. We have some amazing minority chambers throughout Colorado, and locally I've mentioned the 3 that are promoting us, but they're chambers and they can lobby for us, right? Like there's some of us that, you know, have to be neutral in what we say, or you're scared about, you know, being known as the person that's making a lot of sound. But guess what? Those chambers work on our behalf. That's why they love your membership, so they know what you need and they speak on their behalf. So thank you for mentioning that. They are huge partners of ours in our communities. So thank you, Francis. Antonio?
I have a 2-part answer. The short one is everybody that mentioned Francis. In addition to that, we do have the amazing SBDC centers and the MDO office. Please feel free to reach out and let us know what you need. It is our job to connect you with resources, to find resources, and to develop programs to advocate for you to thrive as a business owner. In 2020, since March 2020, I was working with boots on the ground in the food distribution system, and we ended up with in a bad situation with no money at that moment and no resources. So the community got together. The community worked together. We brought organizations, foundations, the government. And at the end of the day, we were able as a community to come together and work in the largest food distribution point in Southwest Denver. I believe this can be done in any other field and any other level. I believe something that COVID taught us was that together we are more. Together we accomplish more things. And it made the customers, in this case the community, wanted something done, and they didn't care who was doing it. They wanted all the organizations to get together and solve a problem, to think about a holistic solution, to think about impactful results, and that's what they achieved. So I would encourage people to kind of get together, talk to each other, talk to your neighbor, talk to your community leaders, and move it on, because that's the only way that we can get things done. Something that now that we're moving and getting in a different phase of COVID with more relaxed time, I don't want people to lose their momentum on asking what they need, advocating for what they want, making sure that your voice is heard. Because sometimes we have the best intentions, that if we don't have your input, we're going to get the best we can, but if you are part of the solution, if you're part of the suggestions, we can get something really that fits and tailor your needs. As a minority business office, we are committed to advocate, do outreach, connect resources, and develop programs and partners to create opportunities for minority business to thrive. This is one Colorado for all.
Thank you so much, Antonio. I really appreciate those comments. MBO office has been exceptionally easy to access and talk with throughout for as long as I can remember, but definitely when people need it the most in 2020 or during any kind of disasters our state has had. So thank you so much. Wendy, on to you.
Yeah, and I'm going to go to Corey and build on what Corey and Antonio said. Beautifully said, Antonio. Thank you very much. I was inspired by that. I think the first thing you have to do is to say, look, I'm a citizen, right? And a business owner. Those are two different hats to play. And I need to lean in, even in this pandemic and the set of crises. We had more than one. We had multiple crises, right? And that seemed overwhelming. But look, as a citizen and a small business owner in a community, in a city, in a state, I want to find like-minded people. They may be at the minority business office. They may be part of the SBDC. They may be at a chamber. My first thing is, once I accept that responsibility, right, as an active, engaged citizen, as a small business owner, and I want to more than just survive, thrive, I want to find like-minded people, and they're all over the place, right? They really are. And once I find them, I want to go, Corey, to what you said. I want to find the one person in that group that I can build trust with. And that person will look like a community connector to me. I'm going to use your words, right? A navigator. And I'm going to say, I want to be heard. I want to be active. What would you recommend? Even though I know all these places exist, I want to go to that one place where I can meet more people like me and make sure my voice is heard as an engaged citizen and, a small business owner. I will tell you though, there are advisory boards all over this state that are eager, almost desperate, right, to hear from small business owners, not just Energize Colorado, but many others. So to be honest, if you're going to be an engaged citizen, if you're going to really be active in supporting small business, and find your community and your trusted advisor, if you will, in that community, you're going to need to invest some time. And I know you don't have a lot if you're a small business owner, but you're going to need to, because you can go find a spot where people will have deep respect and complete understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. So look for that crowd and then take a role on an advisory board. And that's where your voice, I think, is best placed and heard and activated.
Absolutely. I really like what you mentioned, Wendy, about, find that community and find the others, because we know, Corey, we have a couple minutes available on this question. You represent Southeast Colorado Springs, which is very representative of many other areas in Colorado, underserved, very high in minority population. There's a lot of groups in Southeast that have come together to really be that navigator. You actually told me about one the other day. We have Thrive, we have the Rise Coalition. There's these, I didn't know if you wanted to mention something like that and how that has helped get this information out there.
Yes, absolutely. Viva Marketing, that is owned by Moni Hernandez. She sits on the Latino Chamber, powerful Latina that is now, her offices are housed at Silver Key, and Centro La Familia is housed in the same place. There is counseling services there. They also have education for Spanish-speaking teens in the same place. They all met to discuss operations, like who's going to throw the trash once a week and leasing things. And they all recognized that they, because of who they serve, they are a hub for Latinos in the Southeast community, and are now talking about how they can refer clients to one another. And through that synergy are now talking about becoming that centralized hub for Latinos in the Southeast community. And so it's a wonderful thing that Jason Diabueno there at Silver Key is now formulating. It's an idea at this point that Jason and Moni are working on, and I hope it's an idea that takes on some wings, because it's just wonderful how just getting together and talking about some operational stuff took on some other things. They were just talking about a sign in the lobby, hey, if you need help with businesses or help with marketing, go here. If you need help with educational stuff, go here. And it was like, oh wow, why don't we just help them with all kinds of stuff and start referring them, doing referrals for the Latino community. We're all Spanish speaking services in one place. And it's absolutely wonderful.
That's an excellent, I just love to give real life examples of what we're talking about, right? It's just sometimes they're just so organic that they happen, and you don't want to lose that momentum without continuing that on. And I kind of jumped the gun because you kind of answered the next question, Corey, but I'm going to let you continue with that. We talked earlier in the intro, I said, 2020 brought into light some of these gaps that we talked about. 2020 brought into light the problems with access to capital and put the spotlight on it. Not any issues that haven't been there before. It's actually been around for a while, right? But we're finally, as a community, realizing we got to do something about it. But the question is what must be done differently to ensure we are reaching our minority populations and gaining their trust, right? I can even walk into any community and say, hey, I'm here, here's the info, but what makes that better than anything else? Why should they trust me? So take that question where you think it should go, but we'll go with you, Corey, then Kayla, then Natasha.
You have to actually go in and work with this community. And I'm glad that Natasha is on this panel, because I think her and her organization have done a great job with this as well. And I want to give credit where credit is due. They are another economic development organization that recognized that just saying that you have to help this community is different than actually doing the work. And so I want to give Natasha and Exponential Impact their credit, because just saying that you need to work with this community. Colorado Enterprise Fund has been working with this community quite some time, and you have to go in and do the work, helping people fill out applications, in not just having applications in Spanish, but helping them understand. And you have to get comfortable with many more things about, I'm speaking specifically about the Latino community in this case. Southeast Colorado Springs is one of the most diverse, it is the most diverse part of our community in Colorado Springs. And so a lot of times there's discomfort with working with government entities, mainly because when they're business owners, while they are U.S. citizens, some people that they're related to are not. And so they're uncomfortable because they're afraid of some of the questions you might be asking, or some of the qualifications that they might need in order to get certifications, in order to get qualified for loans, in order to get certified for the grants that we were trying to get out into the community with the CARES Act money that Kayla and the county economic development department was working with. And so in order to build trust, you need to work in the community side by side along with these organizations, with these people. And the organizations on these panels did just that.
Very good. Thank you so much, Corey. Kayla?
Yeah, I have to echo everything Corey just said. She said it beautifully. And Corey, it's an honor working with you. I know that throughout all of, the Regional Business Relief Fund, which was a COVID-19 relief program that our office stood up in 2020 in response to the pandemic and specifically the economic disruption that happened from it. It's an honor working with Colorado Enterprise Fund and SBDC and so many of everyone on this call. It's you guys are a pleasure to work with. And I have to say, when talking about gaining trust, it's quite interesting because this conversation comes up quite frequently in regional, strategy planning meetings, conversations with other community entities. And, gaining trust is quite simple at its core, and yet it's an incredibly complex task to take on, especially from a government perspective, because of exactly what Corey just said. There is a natural distrust that has come, historically towards government, especially with our minority-owned businesses. And I will say that, we could sit for hours and say, oh, we're providing materials in multiple languages, or our webinars are going to be done in English, Spanish, and American Sign Language, and we can speak to these types of things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's answering any of the problems that our minority-owned businesses are currently seeing, have seen historically, and will continue to see until we have entities and specifically leaders that step up to the plate and start creating programming and policy and projects that answer their needs quite head on. One of the things that I would say is a priority in gaining trust and reaching our minority populations has been exactly what Corey mentioned earlier: the community connectors, the navigators, building relationships, trustful, collaborative relationships with those people, those entities has been huge for us. But also speaking to an earlier point that Antonio made about equity, in programming and policy and projects in particular, and I'm going to use the Regional Business Relief Fund as an example, it's one thing to provide our applications in English and Spanish, but one of the focal points that we had in the Regional Business Relief Fund was also making sure that the evaluation process of that fund included equitable practice in it. And by that, I mean that when people applied, if you fell within the targeted ownership of minority, women, or veteran-owned businesses, you were given an extra point in your evaluation rubric. And that was intentional because equity is not just, equality. Equity is ensuring that everyone has an equal playing field, and our minority-owned businesses were disproportionately affected by COVID. So it is not an effective, equitable practice to just provide a translated marketing material and call that equity. That is not equity. And so that was one way in which we learned the hard way. We learned from failures that we've had as government to implement better programming for our community. And I would say that moving forward, gaining trust is being willing to listen to that hard feedback, having those uncomfortable conversations, and effectively and appropriately responding to that with programming that meets the needs of our minority business community. And I can say with full confidence that El Paso County, Colorado is entirely committed to doing just that.
Love it. Thank you so much, Kayla. I loved how you really talked about and said equality is not equity. I mean, it's so often used, one against the other, just interchangeably, and it's not. And I'm glad you really showed the difference between the two of those, because that's the first step when you really try to include equitable practices, right? Is understanding that there's that difference. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Natasha?
Yes, and I agree with all the points, and just to continue building off, I would say it's about building relationships and being in it for the long haul. And to kind of illustrate to exponential impact, usually working with technology startups, we really took our core competencies and capacity building and access to capital to the small business community when the pandemic hit. And from the beginning, we knew we needed to work with the community leaders and community connectors like Corey, who came on and supported us, and many others on this call, to help us reach the communities that we knew needed to be reached and to start to build that trust from the beginning and those relationships, and bringing in a mentor model to make sure that businesses were paired with other community leaders and we all got to learn from one another, and build relationships that go beyond just the business strategy or how do we make it through this moment. And then I would say it's really about committing to building those relationships beyond the crisis or when you need the relationships. It's about how do we now, having, had this experience and started to form relationships and meet the gatekeepers and others, how do we continue to build off of those relationships? And I think that comes down to the co-development of programs and building a diverse set of resources that are really good at warm handoffs to other support organizations and institutions as well, to make sure that the gaps in our ecosystem continue to shrink and that those overlaps and handoffs are increasingly better to support. And then just to build off of, I think, what Kayla was saying too, in terms of how we approach the decision-making process with some of these programs, is make sure that you're bringing on people who are representative of the communities that you're wanting to serve. And I think that's so important. And it goes back to that kind of co-development of resources and programs and projects to make sure that that we're building this as a community.
Yeah, absolutely. Wendy, I think you wanted to mention something also.
Yeah, just a thought through my mind that I think is, or flew through my mind that I think is relevant to this conversation. I mean, trust is a core part of collaboration. And collaboration, people use that word like they use trust when they haven't really unpacked it to understand the significance and weight of it. And when we think about collaboration, especially in the context of minority businesses, in this heavy set of crises, that we've gone through, we need to think about the interdependency of needs, right? And it's not just what I can do for you, it's what you can do for me, and then what we can do for each other. And Antonio, you were talking a lot about that in one of your comments earlier. So if you think about collaboration as the foundation is an interdependency, an explicit interdependency of needs. That's really significant. That means I've had to listen, I've had to learn, I have to get them aligned, I have to really, really understand them. And then there's trust, and trust only comes through consistent behavior. It has to be consistent, and communication helps with trust, right, for sure, but I only trust if I see a consistent type of behavior that causes me to want to give you the information, going, Francis, back to your surveys, that you're asking for, right? That I know ultimately will help me as a small business. So our needs are very interdependent. If I don't give you that information, you can't help me, right, with programs and with funding. So I think if we could talk even differently and more definitively about the requirements of collaboration, we would really get to the essence of trust, and we would be able to build it by demonstrating behaviors across all of our organizations. Convene and connect, not control, right?
Mm-hmm. Antonio, you went off mute. Did you have something you'd like to add? We have a few more minutes.
Yes, thank you all for bringing equity, trust, collaboration to the table, because the more we say it, the more we keep it in our minds. I believe it's something I learned from this COVID crisis is that the people that we thought it was just the common front line workers were there for us and supporting us. But the reality is, where I work and where I live, those hidden frontline workers like food change, food industry, community navigators, promotoras, community connectors, they actually were the ones who made the difference, especially during the crisis. So I invite those to make sure we understand that these guys already have the market penetration. These guys already know and are trusted within their communities. So let's give them the value. Let's give them the how important it is to get to these clients. Plus, we will cut the learning curve. We will cut the cost, because they already doing awesome work in their communities. Also, those business owners, please be courageous. Make sure you share your views, you share your needs, ask for help. We're here to support you. And some of the great, beautiful things that I've seen over and over now is that we bring people like this panel together to make sure that we are working for you. We're listening to you. So please let us know what you need.
Very good. You know, I love the word in there, consistency, when it comes with trust as well. You know, we're talking about developing more programs at the SBDC and the BBB. You know, we're always talking about what do we need to do next and how do we, you know, lead a charge. But we also need to know and plan that it doesn't happen overnight. Consistency and persistence, along with consistency, right, is incredibly important to make sure that, you know, people know you're real serious about this. So if you want to be trusted, and, you know, as small business owners, I want to see my leadership consistently be a part of the conversation so that I know I could trust them. So on the other side of it, if you're a small business owner listening, which I know there's plenty of you and you're minority-owned businesses, I agree with you that you definitely want to work with an organization that is consistently supporting your type of business, that has history, that has success stories, that has boots on the ground in your community, because that is, you know, that shows that they care and they're making change. But as an organization, you may have great missions in place and you know, you've got great ideas, but remember, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while to gain trust, you know, and it takes a while to actually even, you know, get that information out there in the various ways that people need it. So I love that word consistency, and I love that word persistence for both the business owner to seek that information and for the organization to ensure that they are reaching that business owner as well. So I loved that conversation. I think we could have an event just on that conversation about trust and consistency and what collaboration really means. It's not okay to just show up one day and say, I'm here. Although, you know, during the pandemic, that happened a lot, and that was okay because people really need to do that. But it also created confusion, right? So give 2020 a little spark in your seat to say, okay, I was here in 2020. I'm going to be here in 2040. I'm going to be here in 2060. So stay consistent and do the job right. So just loved that conversation. Thank you so much. All right. So now, everybody, we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to provide a little bit of time for each of our panelists to do these little bursts of information. I could not leave a BBB SBDC event without providing resources, because that's what we do. And we've actually just talked about that, right? Like ask questions. Well, every one of you as a panelist has amazing resources, has had amazing impact because you recognized these inconsistencies and we needed to fill them. So I'm going to give everyone about 5 minutes to do a burst of information from your organization. And I know that's really hard to do. But the great thing is after this conversation, people will know where to find you and know where to get more information. So thank you so much for doing this in advance. So the order for those of you watching, it'll be Francis Padilla with SBA, Antonio Soto with MBO OEdit, Wendy Lee with Energize Colorado, Corey Arcariz with CEF, Colorado Enterprise Fund, Kayla Hutherford Nelson with El Paso County Economic Development, and then Natasha Main with Exponential Impact, also representing Survive and Thrive as mentioned earlier. So with that said, Francis, you are up. Your 5 minutes starts now.
Awesome. When have you ever known me to be able to complete a presentation in 5 minutes? I love that you have that faith in me. So I think we've spent the whole last year and a half living the details of the SBA Economic Relief Program. So I'm not going to give you a commercial on each of these, but I just wanted to use this slide that's in front of you to highlight that our tiny agency, and with less than 2,000 people throughout the whole country, administered 8 nationwide relief programs, most of them concurrently, and many of them are still ongoing. And did we roll everything out flawlessly from the beginning? No, but hopefully we learned from that. And for each of these programs, I think we did indeed tweak or improve processes or access, especially for underserved markets after some experience that, you know, with some unintended consequences. So for instance, most of the loan and direct award programs, in order to provide more fair and equitable access, we implemented changes such as adding priority or exclusivity processing periods for the smallest employers, and for socioeconomically disadvantaged businesses under programs like PPP and shuttered venues and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. We went back to target aid after the first round of PPP to smaller employers, those that were suffering the greatest losses and were generally located in low-income communities, by targeting awards like EIDL targeted advance payments, and now under the American Rescue Plan, supplemental targeted advance payments. We added more community and mission-based lenders as delivery mechanisms, knowing that one of the big barriers in the first round of PPP is that some of our underserved communities could not find a lender or did not have a prior relationship with a lender. And so when the money started rolling and it was first come, first served, that was a huge crisis in access right there. So we did go back, added more community and mission-based lenders as that delivery mechanism. In Colorado, we added 31 new lenders from when PPP first started until the first round of funding expired, and then continued on through the first and the second and third capitalizations. And then we also set aside funds for delivery by community financial and minority depository institutions like Corey's, because we do know that organizations like Corey's tend to work more closely with underserved markets. We brought in eligible applicants to include nonprofits and faith-based organizations and agricultural industries and rural cooperatives and shuttered venues and a whole lot of other employers that we don't traditionally work with under core programs. We also extended debt relief for all SBA core program borrowers, and then added some additional months of debt relief payments for those that were in hardest hit industries, and also for community advantage loan clients. And these tend to be clients that are businesses that are located in underserved markets. We made several reforms to PPP to further ensure that small businesses do get the help that they needed. And this was especially designed to work for mom and pop businesses in low income areas and in socioeconomically disadvantaged areas. We changed the funding formulas to target funds to industries, again, that were experiencing the greatest losses. And then also to maximize awards to independent contractors and self-employed and sole proprietors. And then finally, to be more inclusive, we also eliminated from first round to second round a lot of exclusionary restrictions. Things like people who were suffering and couldn't pay their student loan debt just because of the pandemic, but they still had an operating business, for non-fraud felony convictions, and also making sure that there was access for immigrant business owners, and that was through PPP. Next. So with my remaining time, I don't want to give you a whole lot of numbers to make your mind blow, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot in time of how Colorado fared under the major programs. And so for 2021 PPP approvals, we actually assisted 87,000 businesses, and that was a tune of 4.7 billion, and that's in Colorado alone. And the average loan size was just under 55,000, so it really was utilized by small businesses. So if you added the awards made in 2020 with the awards made in 2021, over 196,000 PPP loans, and that totaled 15.1 billion, were approved in Colorado. That was both first and second draw. This slide that you see in front of you is actually an excerpt from a report we post each month. It's called Data on Achieving Equity, and it's publicly available. It's online, anyone can see it. And it really is our SBA accounting on how the funding is being distributed for the two cornerstone relief programs right now, PPP and EIDL. And if you kind of look really closely, squint, early indications do show that program reforms and efforts communities, like Corey said, like Wendy said, like Natasha said, you engage authentically. When you engage unauthentically, you can move needles. So when we did a comparison of the average rate of loans being made during PPP before the exclusivity period and then after the exclusivity period, here's what we found. We found that minority-owned businesses were able to access the program up by 20%. Women-owned businesses access the program up by 14%. And small businesses that were in rural areas were up by 12% in terms of approvals. And in total, there were more than almost 500,000 small businesses and nonprofits that had employees of less than 20 that were serviced during that exclusivity period. And compared to all the other periods, even first-time borrowers were up by 25% increase just because we put in an exclusivity period. On this particular slide, again, if you squint, you can see the breakdown between first and second round PPP loans on the right-hand side, but also you'll note on the left-hand side that there were 28% of the approvals in dollars made in low to moderate income areas, and also 16% made in rural areas. And this is data as of the end of May of this year. Next slide. This slide just shows that with the 2021 round of PPP after the reforms, we did reach smaller borrowers. 42% of the total dollars approved were made in amounts less than 100,000, and 59% were made in amounts less than 250,000. Next slide. In terms of quantity, 57% of the loans were approved were made with businesses of 20 employees or less. And then there are some idle numbers that we gave the deck to AICTA. So if you want to go through these numbers, I want you to know that you can have access to them. But an idle so far, Coloradans have actually received more than $3.7 billion in economic aid through the various programs, but we're not done yet. We're continuing to make targeted advance payments and also supplemental targeted advance payments. And then finally, here's where we are. So a quick summary of where we're going and what we've done so far. We've opened up our notice of funding opportunity for a community navigator program. And I heard everybody on this panel talking about, again, putting a system in place where we have trusted members of the community that are advocates and can help be a part of the ecosystem to lead people to self-sustenance, resiliency, small businesses, opening small businesses, growing their businesses. So if you can work with them at the community level to get them healthy, get their families healthy, get their financials healthy, and move them along a spectrum to all the different resource providers that are on this panel, we're better as a community. We're better as a universe. So this is what the program is intended to do. And applications are due in July. It's live right now for applications. PPP has ended, so we're just waiting until the end of June for all of the data to shake out and any of the hold codes to be corrected. We're still taking idle applications through December of this year. We're still doing targeted advance, supplemental targeted advance. We're still accepting shuttered venue applications, and the notification of awards are trickling slowly out. So we should be seeing awards in Colorado sometime very soon. And the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, I can't say enough about learning from mistakes and simplifying a process that actually did result in a good experience, and also having a priority period for underserved markets so that they did have fair access on the front end. The only disadvantage with this is that we don't have enough capitalization for the amount of applications that have come into the system. So that's kind of waiting a further congressional allocation. And then finally, we're still doing debt relief programs. So we're making payments on your behalf if you take out new SBA loans in the core programs through the end of September. And that's where we've left off, Ekta.
Thank you, Francis. I had to put my glasses on so I could see a little bit more myself. That is amazing information. Definitely can send that out to everybody. The SBA has done amazing work, and we've learned from mistakes, and the SBDC flew right alongside with SBA as a resource partner, and we were proud to help administer some of those programs. So Francis, thank you for getting that all in about 10 minutes. I really appreciate that. Okay, Antonio, you're up next.
Thank you, I appreciate this time. Yeah, those are great numbers. We support federal initiative as well as local and state level initiative. The Minority Business Office is here to serve the minorities, women, and veterans, to make sure the efforts and the resources are shared with them to make sure they thrive. We are committed to advocate, again, to outreach, connect resources, making sure that all the available options, including access to capital and technical assistance, are reaching out to those small business owners that need it. Please reach out, get into our website. We did a major overhaul because we listened to you. Now it's way easier to get the help you need. But if you still are struggling to get the help, please connect to with the MBO, the Minority Business Office. Reach out, pick up the phone or email, or contact your local SBDC. Our SBDC network has over 300 consultants across the state. Please use them as your first line of resource. And I just wanted to end this to thank you. I get to this slide, please. I'm going to use this slide to kind of thank everybody that supports our team, not only the minority business consultants that we have, but the team of the Office of Economic Development, the Rural Opportunity Team, the SBDC, the Employee Ownership Team. Everybody's working for you to have an opportunity and for you to thrive. Please, if I want to leave with 2 words for you, is think and bring to the table equity and inclusivity. I will say that with those 2 words, we can make a lot of stride, and we can make sure that everybody has an opportunity, a chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. All right, we are on to our next burst with Wendy Lee and Energize Colorado.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick preamble to the GAP Fund and then pick the top a couple of slides in this presentation, because I want us, the audience, to have good context, right, for the whole of what Energize Colorado does, and then why the GAP Fund was established. So a couple of things to say. Headlines for Energize Colorado: advance resilience in small businesses, especially 25 employees or less, across the priority groups: women, veterans, rural, and BIPOC, right? So those priority areas are core to what we do, very, very core to what we do. We provide services, wraparound services, to support the funding we offer. Those wraparound services go from acquiring PPE to connecting with a mentor, like many other organizations do, as well as mental health, free services, and now digital readiness, as well as showcasing small businesses through Can Do Colorado. So just imagine 90 volunteers across the state building and implementing products and services to the small business sector, 25 employees or less across those priority groups. So pretty amazing work, but actually supercharging the work or connecting the work that's already been done with small businesses, where small businesses have a lot of trust directly with the organizations on this call and others. So I think that's important. We live to advance resilience, and we stand to promote equity in all the work. So of the 18 services we offer, they all connect to resilience or equity in some way, Antonio. So that's an important statement to make. Now on the GAP Fund, and we'll go through this very quickly. On the GAP Fund, we had 3 kinds of money that we were deploying. This is important. We have private money that we deploy through loans. We had CARES Act money that we were trusted with to deploy, and that's what this particular slide is referring to. And now will be given $15 million to allocate to small business from the state budget. So 3 types of funding. That's important for us to know. But on the first 2 tranches, which the numbers reflect, we had 10,000 applications through energizecolorado.com. The need was for $240 million through those applications. Shock horror, imagine that gap. And we actually deployed 83% of the $26 million to those priority groups that we mentioned. That's hard work to do it that fast, but also to hit the target where the most need was. Next slide. And so I think that it's important for us to realize we've only tipped the iceberg, meaning there's still great disparity in the sectors and priority groups that we've talked about. And even though we're proud that 70% of the money went to BIPOC and women, we know, again, that we haven't done all that needs to be done. And that's why we're excited about the loan program that we're implementing now and the new $15 million that was just legislated. Next slide, please. So these slides actually go through the total. You'll see there was about 25 million. You'll get a sense of exactly the kinds that we had 2,060 awards out of 10,000 applications. 99% of those applications awarded were from priority groups. So that, again, that feels good, but a lot more work to do. Next slide. This really is just going to go through lots of the different priority groups. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but we measured our success. If you go to the next slide, Steve, we measured our success on how much we amplified, right, the actual priority groups. So we looked at what the population was and what we actually deployed into that population group to see what was the multiplier, right? And in each of these cases, for each priority group, in the case of women-owned businesses, 2x was multiplied of the available population. So again, positive, not anything to celebrate, but positive. And then the next slide talks about the multiplier for the Hispanic, was that for the Hispanic group? The slides are hard for me to see, yes. And so each of these slides, if we won't go through each of them, we were mindful of exactly the size of that population, of that small business population, and what actually got deployed into that group and what it actually multiplied. Now, I will end on this, Steve, because I'm watching my time. I know we have to be mindful of it. None of this was done just through Energize Colorado. I've already talked about our volunteers, yay, they're awesome. But we had a network of partners that included CHAFA, the fund manager, that included OEdit, and included organizations like Carries, because this money was deployed through CDFIs and lenders that understand the small businesses in their community and have strong trust with them. That's not something Energize Colorado did. So the summary is, what an honor it is to be part of this ecosystem. And thank you for having us on this particular panel. And we have 4 years of commitment to continue doing the work through partners like you guys.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Going on to our next burst of information with Colorado Enterprise Fund and Corey Arcurice.
Thank you, Ekta. We have quite a number of loan funds that we are very, very happy about to announce. Colorado Enterprise Fund is a statewide organization. We are a CDFI, but we have opened our offices in Southern Colorado in 2019. And I am so very pleased to announce we just released our press release just this week of our partnership with El Paso County for the Revolving Business Loan Fund for the enterprise and opportunity zones. I announced it this morning. Yay, Kayla. I announced it this morning at the 1 Million Cups event. And so we are so happy to announce that revolving business loan fund. We also have the Black Business Loan Fund for our minority owned businesses. We also have an I-10 loan fund that for our Latino owned businesses, for anyone that has an I-10, and you can go and find these on our website. We also have a revised Transforming Safety loan fund for Southeast Colorado Springs. We are so happy to have worked with the Department of Corrections. This was launched a couple of years ago when Transforming Safety first launched in Southeast Colorado Springs, but we have just revamped it. We are going to be working in conjunction with the SBDC to have a class. And for those that go through the class and have revised projections, either for existing or new startup businesses, the loan is a 5-year loan, and if you pay diligently for 3 years, the remaining 2 years are forgiven. So it is an outstanding loan program for Transforming Safety. We continue to have our Valor loan, where you get 2 points off. Those are for veterans, and we continue to have our micro loans. So if you are an existing business or a new startup in Colorado Springs or anywhere in Southern Colorado, we have a loan program for you that will fit for you. So you can find all our loan programs at coloradoenterprisefund.org. We have these specialty programs. We are, like I said, so excited to be launching the business loan fund with El Paso County. We just announced that, and I just wanted to make sure to highlight those because we have hit the ground running in Southern Colorado and are so very happy to be doing that. We can work with existing businesses or startups, and obviously minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses are the highlight of what we do. We worked very closely. Grant administration was not something we did, but we did step in and do that in 2020, and we are very grateful to have done that as well. Volunteering with grant administration, also with Natasha's program, was also something we do. We are community partners. I love the word business ecosystem because that is what we're part of in this community, and I love that we are part of the business ecosystem in our community. So thank you for the opportunity to talk. I don't want to take up any more time because I know that we're running a little behind as well. So thank you again for letting me be part of this amazing panel.
Thank you, Corey. All right, next on to Kayla Hutherford-Nelson with El Paso County Economic Development.
Hi, all. Thank you so much again for having us. We're really excited to be able to be part of this conversation. So, we did in 2020, our office stood up 3 different COVID-19 relief programs, but the one that I'm going to primarily focus on talking about at this moment is the Regional Business Relief Fund program that we stood up and executed in October of 2020. Through this program, we partnered with Colorado Enterprise Fund and Corey. She was so instrumental through that, as well as the amazing Ekta, who we all know and love, and the Small Business Development Center, by providing some additional resources such as the Leading Edge program to provide, a program for our small businesses and nonprofits, to have kind of a holistic approach to resiliency through the COVID-19 pandemic. But, in October, our Regional Business Relief Fund supported 864 small businesses and nonprofits throughout our region with grants up to $20,000 that assisted with business operational costs incurred due to the pandemic. El Paso County ended up distributing $13.8 million in grant funding with an average grant amount of $16,000 per organization assisted. However, one of the things that we're most proud of through this project was that 56% of our recipients and of those small businesses and nonprofits self-identified as women, minority, or veteran-owned businesses in our region. After this program was fully wrapped up, we had Summit Economics do kind of a report about the impact of the Regional Business Relief Fund, and it was found that the assistance provided through that project alone could aid in saving up to 11,735 direct jobs and 16,789 total jobs in the El Paso County region, while protecting $1.14 billion in local economic output. These levels of employment would save up to $12.8 million in sales taxes generated through household expenditures to support local government. It was an incredibly successful project for our region. However, in echoing earlier sentiments, success with a project like that is extremely bittersweet, as it showed that there was extreme need in our region as well. However, I cannot emphasize enough that the partnerships that we had throughout, all community partners, SBDC, Colorado Enterprise Fund, was instrumental in making sure that this project happened in the way that it did and reached our minority businesses in the way that it did. Next slide, please. This is kind of just a quick breakdown as to what that actually looked like. So the $13.8 million in funding was broken down into an average grant amount asked of $18,629. And as I said earlier, the average grant that was awarded was $16,039. Of the 864 small businesses and nonprofits that received funding, 734 of them were small businesses, 130 of them were nonprofits. And as I mentioned earlier, 484 of those recipients, which came out to be 56% of them, self-identified within the women, minority, and veteran-owned business ownership for our region. Next slide, please. So to that point, we have programs offered out of our office, for economic development, business incentives, community development, and affordable housing. But some of the ones I wanted to particularly highlight is our Pikes Peak Enterprise Zone, which is a state program designed to promote a business-friendly environment in economically distressed areas by offering state income tax credits to incentivize businesses to locate and develop in and nonprofit organizations to assist with the needs of the communities. The Revolving Business Loan Fund, which Corey so beautifully articulated earlier, this is a project that just launched last week. We're extremely proud of our partnership with Colorado Enterprise Fund, and will provide loan funding to private, for-profit, small businesses and startups located in El Paso County and within specifically the Pikes Peak Enterprise Zone, or one of our region's 8 opportunity zones, who otherwise may not be able to access financing through conventional lenders. Borrowers have access to loan funding and wraparound support services such as education, consulting, and/or mentorship and technical assistance services. Then we have the opportunity zones there, which are a federal tax incentive designed to incentivize investors to reinvest capital gains in economically distressed communities. We have 8 of these here in our Pikes Peak region. Then we have the commercial aeronautical zone, which provides numerous tax savings to local businesses at the Colorado Springs Airport. And then finally, we have the Colorado Development Block Grant, which is a community development initiative out of our office. It is from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development that can be used for construction-related projects and infrastructure like sidewalks and sewer lines and public facility rehab / construction projects. Our department's vision for this program in particular is to develop viable communities by ensuring a range of affordable housing choices, supporting necessary services and public infrastructure, strengthening the local economy, and mobilizing community resources to enhance collaboration and community partnerships. Finally, I want to touch quickly on, what is coming, our focal points as we move forward as an office. Our office, and specifically El Paso County, Colorado as a whole, is entirely committed to ensuring that diversity, equity, and inclusivity are a consistent conversation that we're having. And so at this point, we are working collaboratively across our entire region with entities, chambers, businesses, individuals, community connectors, navigators, as Corey so beautifully said earlier, to effectively create strategy that is equitable for our region. We understand the importance of this, and I just cannot emphasize enough how much we recognize that government has not always answered our needs of the minority-owned businesses of our region effectively. And we recognize this, and we're fully committed to calling that out exactly how it is, and to working with our community, hand in hand to figure out effective ways to not only solve that issue, but to, ultimately make our community thrive and to support our minority businesses, as we are not El Paso County without them, without all of you. And we recognize that, and we're fully committed to that. So I will hand it back over to you, Ekta.
Thank you, Kayla. Very, very good. Natasha, we're going to end the presentations with you. Thank you for waiting so patiently. Go ahead.
Absolutely. This is amazing information from all of these organizations from state to kind of county level. I have a very different kind of approach too. And if you wouldn't actually mind going back to the beginning of the slides, I think that's my last one. Thank you. But really kind of highlighting who we are, right? So we're a small nonprofit organization based around how do we solve the needs of our scaling entrepreneurs in Colorado Springs. And so we're looking at providing holistic support to our entrepreneurs. That's around wellness and mental health, business strategy, leadership development, access to capital, all of those components. And so when the pandemic hit, we really took those core competencies and what we were doing with kind of high growth entrepreneurs, recognizing, when the shutdown orders came through, the stay-at-home orders came through, that there was going to be a significant gap between when the pain hit our community and when federal and state and other resources came. And so between when those stay-at-home orders happened 2 weeks later, and then you can go to next slide, please, we had opened our application for a loan fund to support small businesses. And so we raised locally from private individuals and foundations a $2.3 million loan fund to support the needs of our small businesses and nonprofit organizations. So we ended up allocating 132 loans. And we really prioritized kind of keeping the barriers to access really minimally. And I can kind of go into that. I'm going to speed over a few things just to keep this concise and kind of give the preamble here too. But for us, this Survive and Thrive program was really important that we look at this as an intervention in our community in a way too, right? So we did this to how do we not only solve for this immediate crisis, but then build relationships and build businesses to be stronger on the other side of things too. And again, Corey came to support, ICTA was so helpful, Jonathan, so many, Kayla in the county, we're all partnering together to figure out how do we reach the businesses that need to be immediately. And, I am really proud of the community for coming together. For each of those 132 loans, each was paired with an individual mentor, mental health support, and kind of community programming as well. Based on that model, we supported some other kind of developments of local programming and whether it's loans and grants, to then kind of look at the end, we knew, and I think this is a theme that we're picking up on throughout this conversation, is around iteration, right? It's so important to get in there and start with something and be as conscious as we can as we enter communities. And then once you start, iterate, take the feedback and keep going. And so for Survive and Thrive 2.0, we learned a lot of lessons. And then we also looked at, Kayla and the county did a great job with these pulse surveys, right? Really keeping track of where a business is going. We looked at who fell through the cracks on a national level and then even more so on a local level. And we partnered with the city of Colorado Springs to adapt the program to take on their CDBG CV funds to provide grants to businesses directly supporting those that fell through the cracks, which we defined as micro enterprises, so 5 or fewer employees that were either owned and operated by a low to middle income individual or provided jobs to support the low to middle income community as well. And so we've been working with those. 91% of the recipients of this program are minority, women, or veteran owned. It's been an incredible learning opportunity, I think, for us and others to be working with these businesses. We've learned more from them than I think they could ever learn from kind of the programming that we provided as well. And again, kind of following that model of providing the funding, but then also capacity support and relationship building with this program too. So we can move on to the next slide as we look to kind of continue to develop responding to a need, right? That's kind of when we're working with entrepreneurs, we say making sure you're solving for an actual stated need. And that's what we're doing as we're moving forward. And I think as our community grows, the need for additional resources that can be more niche focused are going to occur as well. So we're looking at exploring a revolving loan fund based on the model that we've developed in terms of that holistic support, the mentorship model, the programming, and the collaboration, really to support and fill the kind of access to capital that's really, I would say, is a crisis in and of itself for our community, to make sure that the low to middle income communities and minority businesses have access to funds that suit their needs and are actually, we were hand building some of the financials for these businesses to help them get to the place where they could apply for some of these programs. And how do we, continue to build on that and meet those businesses where they are? So with that, I will turn it back over.
Thank you so much, Natasha. I loved how you ended with you were helping to build the financials. I think what we've all realized, you have to, being present, being consistent, being in the place of need, sometimes means is that it is that in depth, right? I know building those financials, that is what we've all been doing for a while now, and we continually do. I mean, that's sometimes the hardest thing for anybody to understand how to do. But I know Corey drove to Pueblo to fill out a W-9 with a client once who's never filled out a W-9. I mean, that is the level of work that needs to be done to make sure we're helping our community. So thank you so much for getting us that ground level perspective. We are going to end the panel now, which, deep breath, everybody that's watching. That was a lot of information, I know, but I just adore all of you as panelists. You work so hard. Everybody watching, as a small business owner and an organization, thank you for working so hard and being here today to listen in on this conversation. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to you, Jonathan, to close us out and give us a quick recap of what's left in the week.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much to everybody. Ekta, as usual, you did a wonderful job moderating this panel. And to all our panelists, thank you for everything today, for all the work that you do on a daily basis. Everybody stepped up big this past year. And so each one of you has just done a tremendous amount of work, and we definitely appreciate each one of you for doing that. So a lot of great information. I personally appreciated all the slides. I'm a visual person, so it's like, thank you. Good stuff, to be able to see it kind of up there on the screen. So really great information. So again, thank you everybody for doing everything that you do in your daily jobs and for being with us today. So that wraps up the panels and the information sessions for the week. That was the last one today. So congratulations, woohoo. We are done with the panels. Be sure to join us tomorrow for our Small Business Awards ceremony. We are going to give out 5 awards in the following categories: Small Business Person of the Year, Small Business Champion of the Year, Young Entrepreneur of the Year, Family-Owned Business of the Year, and Veteran Small Business Owner of the Year. That will be at 3 o'clock. It is going to be virtual. So hopefully you just kind of pop on your computer and check it out. But, please join us. This is about celebrating tomorrow. This whole week is about celebrating small business. We do this every day, but specifically tomorrow is about honoring those businesses that have just done tremendous work. And every single small business has had to do extra work, but they've done a great job. And so we're going to honor 5 businesses, but again, everybody's done just such great work throughout, our region and throughout the state and throughout the United States. So you can register for that event at pikespeaksbdc.org. We hope you'll be able to check that out. And again, it doesn't have to be just this week. Every single day, make sure you're going out there and supporting small businesses in your local communities. It's so important, so vital. We need these businesses. We've got some great ones in Colorado, and we want them to stay, to make our community vibrant. So with that, thank you everybody for doing another great panel, and appreciate all of you. And we are wrapped up for today. So hopefully see you tomorrow for the award ceremony. Thanks, everybody.